Howdy guys, and welcome to the third day of my castle week. Today I'm in the Eifel again, right next to a castle which might actually be the most interesting to some of you, because it is said to be haunted and really creepy at night. I would say let's first take a look at the history and the castle itself and then get to that. To truly understand the legend of this castle, we must journey back to the Dark Ages. The year was 1402. As a testament to his power, the domineering Lord Werner von Falkenstein ordered the construction of a new border fortress against the Archbishopric of Cologne. According to lore, Werner chose the site so strategically that he could spit from the battlements directly onto his rival's land. However, the Lord never got the chance. During construction, the borders shifted, and the finished castle was used for administration instead. Werner himself died 16 years later in 1418 during an attack on the town of St. Goar. Those are the historical facts. Legend, however, tells a different story. It says that at the turn of the century, Werner found himself in a desperate position. He had crossed the neighboring lords of Mayen as well as the powerful Archbishop of Cologne, and they were now seeking his life. In desperation, the lord struck a bargain with the devil to outsmart his enemies, but it came at a terrible price. When Werner died 16 years later, he was bound to the stone walls of his castle for eternity. They say that if you listen closely at night, you can still hear his faint whispers echoing through the cold masonry. Right at the start we have the former west gate, which leads us to the chamber. We can take a look into that, even though the only remains are the walls. But something that I still think is interesting is this schießscharte in the wall, which was built in a very strategic position because if possible intruders broke through the gate, you could shoot at them, and I think that's an interesting detail to see. Okay, moving on, we get to the next gate, which you can still see the arch of, at least some parts over here, and I think there actually used to be a second one further back over there. Then over here to the right you had the guard room. Really small. I'm pretty sure this rock over here, this boulder, was already there in the medieval ages. You could probably sit over here. Yeah, really small. Still interesting to see. After we move through the gate area, we get to the core part of the castle. We can see the keep to our right and the curtain walls to our left and right in front of us. Even today they are still 10 meters high. To the left we find another tower, and if we move through the small door frame, we get into the inside and we see the diameter is not really that big, but it was relatively tall. Right next to that used to be a gap for a gate. They initially planned to put one there, but it is likely that the gap was already filled in the medieval times, and they decided not to put one over there. They probably also planned to put a building over here and then connect it. It's just really cool to me to imagine that knights in full armors might have been walking around this place at some point, which is likely, even though it was built relatively late in the medieval ages. An interesting detail about the southwest tower is that you can still see this stone, which used to carry a toilet. The walls of the keep are 2.5 meters thick, and the rocks that you can see at the edge over here are volcanic stones that are also from the Eifel. Moving on from here, we get to this building, which was used as a kitchen and a storage room for food. Down here. This is how majestic the keep used to look from this side. I really like that all the curtain walls are still visible like that and they still exist. It really makes you feel like you're actually in the castle during the medieval times. Okay. I would say let's go up the staircase and take a look at the view we got from up there. Before we go in though, what I think is really interesting is that the original entrance, which is still over there, is in 6 meters and 50 centimeters high. This was very usual for keeps because whenever a castle was captured, the lords of the castle could still move into the keep and use it as a last stand, and I think that's really interesting. The castles usually used to have a wooden bridge leading up over there, and whenever they had to, they could just tear down the wooden bridge. I can show you a picture over here of another castle where you can still see that. Okay, now it's also starting to rain and get really windy, but that's not going to prevent me from going up here. Okay, this is a really nice view. It must be even greater if you're up on the top. But over here you can see what I talked about earlier. This is where the original walls of the castle used to be. They used to be connected to the keep over here, and everything used to be a lot smaller. And down there used to be the castle that the name is not known of, that was here hundreds of years earlier. Even earlier though, there used to be a Roman defense base on here in the 5th and 6th century. So there's definitely a lot of history surrounding this place. Okay, now we are at the door to the gate, but it's obvious that it is locked. Large parts of the keep are still how they used to look in the Middle Ages, and you can also see an old chapel in there. Now let us return to the documented history of the castle. During the late Middle Ages, the fortress came into the possession of the Lords of Els, the very same family that to this day still owns one of Germany's most famous castles. But the history of this site goes back even further. As early as the 4th century, the Romans utilized this strategic rock spur for their own defenses. Later in the 10th or 11th century, another castle stood on these grounds, though almost nothing is known about it today. After serving as a falconry site for 3 years, the castle was abandoned and left to decline in 1969. Following years of decay, the old fortress was restored between 2006 and 2007. Today, the allegedly haunted castle is open to anyone who wishes to step inside and explore it. Now, I've actually done a video where I stayed the entire night on this castle and I busted these myths. If you're interested in what we heard or did not hear, you can watch the video over here. I can recommend it to you. But I would say in that sense I'm going to leave the castle with these impressions, call it for the day, but as always not for the week, because it is just day 3 of my castle week and I still have 4 more castles to go, and you should stay curious for that. I'm also staying curious. In that sense, goodbye.